Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Parenting for Prevention podcast. My name is Christian Canales. I am DFY.SCV's program specialist with the City of Santa Clarita. And joining me today is Dr. Malikah Nu'Man, who is an expert in special education. And then we also have Deputy Martinez, who is here with us with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and is also a Santa Clarita School Resource Deputy. And so this podcast is part of our parent education component. And so we want to be able to share the helpful tips and information to parents so that we can prevent our children from trying drugs in the first place. And so Deputy Martinez, the first question is over to you. And so I know you work out here in Santa Clarita. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out as far as it relates to substances and our youth?
So commonly we're seeing marijuana. Historically, that's what you've been seeing on campus, and alcohol abuse. Right. But you're also seeing a concerning increase in harder drugs, such as inhalants like NOS and nitrous oxide. But in addition to that, you're also seeing prescription pills, such as oxycodones, Percocets, Adderall, Xanax. And the concerning part about that is that a lot of these pills are being mixed with fentanyl.
Right.
So that's the dangerous situation there.
And what do you think parents should be aware of?
I think that the fact that a lot of these kids are acquiring these pills in the streets, and they're making their ways into the circle of friends, and that they are potentially damaging as far as with the inhalants. They have a permanent damage component to them. And the fentanyl, obviously, we know how bad the fentanyl crisis is.
And when you arrest someone as it relates to like a drug charge, do they ever share with you how they got addicted in the first place or how they got involved with drugs?
Yeah, that's one of the things I try to ask them, because I want to find out for myself and how I can help transfer that knowledge to the public.
Right.
And a lot of them tell me that, they use drugs. They continue to use drugs to mask trauma that happened in their past. Others have used it because they've grown up around it. I arrested a person 2 months ago, and they told me that the first time they used it was their uncle gave it to them.
Oh, wow.
And they've been addicted to meth for 20 years. So whoever you surround yourself with, the social pressures are so great. Some people just can't say no, and they find themselves addicts into that lifestyle.
Right. And Dr. Nu'Man, at what age does peer pressure typically start to become a significant influence in a child's life?
Interestingly enough, it actually starts as early as 8 or 9. Because that is when students actually began to kind of develop their own social groups, right, and actually have an influence, like they're concerned about the dynamics of their peers. Right.
And as far as the age group, Deputy, where do you start seeing them starting to try drugs?
I think you would have asked me that 5 years ago. I would have told you 17, 18, because that's usually the age of experimentation, right?
Right.
But now I'm seeing it at 12, 13. I mean, you're seeing it in junior high schools, because the vaping pens, they're so prevalent, they're so cheap, and they're so readily available to kids. They start off with nicotine, and the transition to marijuana is not that big of a deal.
So what signs should parents look out for that might indicate that their child is experiencing negative peer pressure?
Yeah, so you may see a few signs. One could be behavior changes. So maybe there's more aggressive behavior, or just the child is acting out of character, right? You might see some mood changes. So that could be depression. It could be sadness, just kind of really up and down with their emotions. You may see some social kind of isolation. So maybe they don't want to go to school any longer. They don't want to engage in the same activities that they once did. You could see some issues with sleep, maybe restless nights, not getting a full rest. There are things, a difference like with appetite. So maybe a student is overeating, maybe they're not eating at all. Maybe you'll notice that they're a little bit more picky with their eating because they don't want to gain weight. They want to have a certain image, right? Yeah. You may see things around self-esteem. Perhaps there is just kind of like a lack of self-esteem altogether. Maybe it was a child that was once very, full of them, like self-esteem, not full of themselves, but had a lot of confidence, and it starts to dwindle.
Yeah.
You may also see substance abuse, which you've already addressed, Deputy, definitely. But also with that too, you might notice that a student is starting to sneak out the house or break rules, right? And that's not something that they typically did. And another is online presence, right? You might notice that a child or a student is becoming obsessed with online presence. So like, am I getting likes? Really obsessed with what type of apps they're looking at.
Yeah.
And the key is to know whether or not it's something that's out of the norm. Right. So there has to be this idea of like, who is this individual? But when you start to see that happening and it's out of the norm, those are definitely red signs or red flags.
Deputy, do you see these signs out in the community?
Yeah, absolutely I do. I mean, I think the advent of social media, which was a great thing initially, but you're also seeing how that's adding to the stressors of life for kids. I mean, it's tough being a teenager these days. It's a lot tougher than it was when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
You have so many more social pressures and so many ways. I had to find trouble. I had to look for trouble. Now it's there.
Right.
And so you're seeing a lot of these kids being exposed to things that they don't have the maturity to be exposed to right now.
Gotcha.
And so they're trying to process and navigate these waters, these difficult waters. And you need that parental support to meet them wherever they're at.
Right. And Dr. Nu'Man, sometimes the hardest part for parents is just starting that conversation or having that conversation with their child. And so what are some strategies that parents can use to start the conversation about peer pressure and just without making their child feel judged or defensive?
Right. So the first is definitely practicing self-awareness, right? You got to know yourself. What are your triggers? Because you want to remain calm, right, for your child and have a safe space for them to feel like they can share anything with you.
Right.
I would definitely say getting to know your child's friends. Know who they hang out with.
Oh, yes.
That's going to make a difference. Also being a model. Right? Like we can teach our children who we want them to be by modeling it for them, right? Giving them that example. And then lastly, I would say it's really important to have ongoing conversations with your children around friendship. What does it mean to be a friend? What does it mean to set boundaries? What's the difference between good peer pressure, bad peer pressure, right? Like you actually want to explicitly teach and have those conversations ongoingly.
Got it. And what are one or two techniques or strategies that parents can teach their children to help them resist negative peer pressure?
Well, one, I would say teaching your child to trust their own gut feeling, right? So if they know that this doesn't feel comfortable, these people don't seem like they like me, encourage them to follow that. Teaching them how to say no and set boundaries, respecting that in the home. So if they say no and they have a boundary, like actually show them that what they say matters. And the last I would say is kind of really, again, looking at decision making, right? So going a little bit deeper too and understanding the consequences. What's a good consequence? What's a bad consequence, right? Like a lot of times we have to break that down for our children. We assume that they know, but you actually have to get them to critically think about your judgment and your decisions, right? And where they'll lead you.
Oh, yeah. And Deputy, in your role on the school campuses, do you have any recommendations for parents and their relationships with school personnel?
Yeah, I think right now there's a lot of resources for parents that connect them to how their child is doing at school. You have the Infinite Campus website where you can go and see how they're doing at school, if there's any discipline issues. Are they late? Are they tardies? Are they even going to school? Sometimes parents are unaware because they don't know that there are resources out there that they can keep their kids in check. Yeah. And I think if the child knows that you're looking, that's going to affect the behavior at school. And they just talk to the teachers. Teachers are more than willing to talk to you about how your children are doing. Right. And I think they want that relationship. They wanted that cooperation. So I think connecting those two pieces from home and school is vital.
Yeah, I see it. I see it in the schools because I'm at all of the high schools. And so I could see that how the teachers want to be able to be connected with the parents. And so that makes total sense. And this question really is for both of you. You know, are there any local resources that you would recommend for parents that are dealing with this issue?
Yes, I would definitely encourage the Child and Family Resource Center. I mean, again, being a special education, I think that it's important to make sure you have support for all students, right? So they're a great resource. Again, schools, right? Reaching out to your schools, talking to your schools. I'd also say if you have any type of places of worship, reaching out and being connected, and then also sports organizations, right? Those extracurricular activities. There's a lot of resources there in terms of community, again, providing support, confidence for students. So don't underestimate their use.
Deputy, do you have any resources that you know of out here?
Yeah, I think the DeFi program is an incredible resource for parents and kids. I think the Sheriff's Department also has its resources. I mean, there's the VITA program. There's also the Explorer program. And then finally, I'm a resource. I'm at the schools. I'm at Golden Valley, La Mesa, and Bellman. And I'm easy to find. If there's any issues going on and you have any questions, you want to bounce some ideas off me, that's what I'm here for.
Right.
I'm at the schools to help not only parents, but the kids as well. So I would welcome the opportunity.
Awesome. And if listeners can take away one piece of advice from this conversation, what would that piece of advice be?
I would encourage our families and parents to really get to know your child beyond the child and parent relationship, right? So again, who are they as a person? Who are they around? What are their interests? Like, take an interest, get curious about that, because really it's important for parents to be your child's biggest influence and kind of motivator, right? So the more that you know who they are, you have a better chance of being able to be that influence for them.
Awesome. Man.
I'd echo the doctor's words. I think pay attention to your kids. Pay attention to their friends, their social circles. I think there are nuances about your kid that you only know about. Mm-hmm. So when something's off, pay attention to that. There's a little voice in your head that everybody else has that you need to listen to sometimes when it comes to your kids. Right. And sometimes you're going to have uncomfortable conversations, but they're worth it because this is the time when your child is going to develop the person that they're going to become as an adult. Right. And you want to intervene if they're going in a different direction.
Right. I'm so glad, honestly, that we had this conversation so that we can put this information out for parents. But I want to thank you, Deputy Martinez, and thank you, Dr. Nu'Man, for being here with me on this podcast. But for everyone that's listening, follow us on social media. So you can follow us at DFY.SCV, that's DFY.SCV. And then you can also visit our webpage at SantaClarita.Gov/parent. Thank you so much for watching.